Hi everyone and welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today I have with me Justin Singh. Now, I'd like to actually introduce him and then we're going to tell a story about his dog because it's such a great story. So Justin's a founder of the outdoor inspection services company called OIS, which is a business intelligence platform currently operating in the Australian $1 billion a year out-of-home advertising industry. I think I know what that means. It means that they actually inspect and verify non-digital advertising, such as signs on bus shelters and so on. Is that correct, Justin?
It's close. We actually we audit and inspect signage, digital signage, or static actually, all across the country to make sure that when the ads are actually supposed to be running or posted, they're actually there, and our customers are getting what they've paid for. So the number of times that you would have driven past a large roadside digital format and it's a black screen, blank, and someone's paying $10,000 a week for that, or there might be another issue. We just help sort of, uncover any sort of issues that then can be addressed, and and hopefully they get their optimal return on investment.
Great. Now, you're running your business remotely at the moment. So you've escaped to a beautiful beachside location in Australia called Byron Bay. Now, Justin, in our little pre-podcast chat, revealed to me that he went on a road trip with his wife and a dog. And so the dog, now, most of you don't know what Byron Bay is like. It's actually a bit of a hippie place. So, can you tell a little bit about, like, you had a problem with your dog yesterday and had to rush it off to the vet. So, what happened there?
Look, I suppose I sort of said to you, if I'm looking a little bit tired, there's a valid reason. And it's not that I was sort of getting drunk excessively in sort of mid of lockdown. We're actually in Byron, which is almost the Glastonbury of Australia. Most people know Glastonbury. And not last night, actually the night before, we took the dogs for a little walk down to the beach, and they were running in the bushes. We've got a golden retriever and a miniature dash. And we then went out for a couple of hours. The dogs are at home, came back to see them. And the poor miniature dachshund, who's only 8 months old, was in a lot of trouble. And we were very, very worried, actually. He was couldn't hold himself up or his head up. He was sort of swaying from side to side, pupils dilated. 45 minutes of the drive to the local vet at midnight that night, and a lot of worry. Dropped him off. They kept him overnight. Caught up in the morning, and we're sort of expecting the vet to say, the cause would be like a snake bite or a paralysis tick or a spider bite. Everything in a strain of it, sort of nasty for dogs. And the response we got back shocked us a little bit that apparently he got marijuana poisoning. So, an old space cake or hash roll in the bushes, as dachshunds do, just chomped it down. And I was saying to you earlier, Jeff, now when we look at the video, how we did not know that dog was stoned amazes us both, because he is swaying. We look at his sort of vacant stare, but he had a bit of a smile on his face, all those sort of telltale sort of signs. So, so we're late night, and we sort of tried to catch one sleep yesterday, but all's well that ends well. But it was a classic Byron adventure, and actually probably one of the benefits of the current situation across the world, whereby we can work remotely and we're all experiencing and creating new ways of working, which is a positive. And you've got we call him, his name's Monty, the dog expert. He's now known as Stoner. So,
Yeah, I just look. How'd you not recognise that he was stoned? Like he's like, obviously his eyes were dilated. Obviously he was he was.
He myself, never touched it. I had no idea. We had to watch a YouTube video before.
He was turning up in an Uber, slightly dilated with another female dachshund, I'm sure, and being a bit loose, and had left his clothes behind. That's what dachshunds do, actually, most of the time.
And that video will be available on the next podcast.
I love it. So anyone's coming to Australia next time, you actually can get on an international airplane. Go to Byron Bay, go to Sydney first, say hi to me, and also to Justin, because he lives there as well, in another beachside suburb with less hash in the bushes. But Dashhound, Stoned, welcome to Australia, really.
A good way to start.
So, Justin, it's great to speak to you. We actually haven't chatted before because I got introduced to you by a great friend of mine called Ben Perry. He's also, and you notice he's got a very strange accent, a bit different to mine. He comes from, not from the land down under, he comes from the land top under. Maybe that's not the right term either. So, he mentioned a term called Glastonbury, which is actually an English town. Is that correct?
It is, but I'm actually from originally. I've been here 20 years now, but originally from Birmingham, which is the second largest capital in the UK. Sorry, second largest in the UK. Right.
So, time to get serious, which is actually quite boring, really. So, let's do. You started your first business when you were 14, because this show's about being an entrepreneur, right? So. And the stories, the pain, the joy, the ecstasy, the persistence and the resilience that we require to be in this wonderful thing called entrepreneurship. So you started this fence panel business. What's a fence panel business when you were 14?
Well, sort of 14, I actually grew up on housing commission, council estate. And so I was always looking to earn an extra couple of quid here and there. Pretty much from when I left the womb. And when I sort of got to 14, actually my dad, my stepdad, worked in sort of like a big sort of a wood factory where they were just building stuff out of wood, and they'd bring the offcuts and bits of wood back and whatever you. And I just sort of figured out that all the fences between all the gardens were sort of a bit rusty and sort of falling over. And I had to go, built all new fence panels. The next door neighbour wanted some, then the next door neighbour, and gradually, as a 14-year-old, I was making £150 a week. This is, 85 or something like that, 86. And then got to a point where my stepdad saying, a little bit too much demand. I think we're going to have to start paying a little bit of the wood that I bring back. So I had to start to raise the prices a little bit. Before you know it, it's sort of just in the blood, really. I've actually just been on a trip, whale watching actually with a few friends, and one of my friends, he works in a very corporate role, and he's sort of saying, "Oh wow, the podcast sounds great, but I could never be an entrepreneur. I don't have that in me," and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think certain times, certain situations, circumstances bring it out of you, and it's about building that confidence. And for me, it sort of happened when I was very young, and I just sort of found, wow, this is cool, right? I'm doing my own thing, and you can do it, and it sort of just created that confidence, really. I think at that young age, and I've never really looked back. I've flipped in and out of the corporate world, but I've always had something, doing that's my own a little bit.
Right. So from fence panels to the next step. So what was the next thing that you sort of got into? You told me that you got into advertising in the UK.
Look, I feel like I've fallen into a couple of things. I went to university, and in all honesty, the reason I went to university is because I didn't want to get a job. So after uni, they were the days when you didn't have to pay for it. You didn't have to take a loan. So I went to university, sort of did business, sort of marketing, and actually quite enjoyed that. Met some very, very good friends, had great experiences, and then moved down to London and found myself working in media, so media buying and planning. So that's really the agencies that actually buy all the space. They buy the TV space. They don't create the ads, but they buy the space, the TV ads, the ads on the outdoor advertising, billboards. And worked with some big clients, Pepsi, Kellogg's, Sainsbury's in the UK. Worked with a fantastic agency, actually, at the time. And sort of that was really started the journey of that space that I was comfortable working in and found challenging and creative. That sort of advertising space, and I'm still sort of in that space at the moment.
Yeah. So how long were you in London doing that gig for?
About 6, 7 years, and so that was long enough for me. It's, London's that sort of place like New York where you go earn your spurs, and once you've worked there, it creates that platform for you to, you've done your apprenticeship almost, and it's easier to move into different markets because it's an exceptional market in which to work. I'd recommend it to anyone, when they're younger, particularly.
Yeah. So you finished the gig there, and is that when you decided to come to Australia?
I did again, and again, a little bit of a story really. I sort of came over here on a sort of a holiday for a couple of weeks. Friend of a friend worked at an agency. They had a job going. It was actually to work on the Coca-Cola account for the Olympics in Sydney in 2000. So probably no better job at the time. And borrowed a friend's suit. Went to the interview with the Coca-Cola client. On the spot there, she'd offered me the job, which is unfortunate because I wasn't actually going to be working for her. I was going to be working for the agency, so that was a good position to be in. And got the job. Was told that I had to go back, get my shit together, and then literally I've got to be back in Sydney within about 8 weeks. So that was quite a big. I didn't really have any time to think about it, and then it was straight in sort of 2000. From sort of February, really planning and working with the team in terms of developing what coat we're going to do for the Olympics, which is an amazing experience. And again, fantastic company at the time, a lot of smarts from around the world. So very fortunate to land that gig.
So what'd you learn out of that experience more than anything else?
There's a combination, man. It's a combination of firstly, just the change. What I did learn was that even though Australians speak English, Australia is not like England. And advertising, it was a baptism of fire. Just different states, and AFL's played in Sydney, Melbourne, WA. Not the codes, for example, and Coke were heavily involved in sport, and trying to get my head around NRL. That's not played in WA. It's relatively played a little bit in sort of Melbourne. It's very hard, and then just the demography and the sheer scale of the country, that was enlightening for me. It really was. And so again, very lucky. I was getting paid to sort of really start to understand Australia, the country which it is, and even the music scene is very different. Working with Coca-Cola, that showed me the true power of a global organisation that are completely aligned, and the planning, the work, the diligence that goes into that business and everything that they do was pretty eye-opening, actually. It really was. And I thought I was going to come here, it'd be easy, it'd be a cruise. I've never worked as hard in 6 months as I did in that period. And again, met some great people from all around the world. So again, an experience that was, that formed, I suppose, how I operate today.
Yeah, I'll explain maybe to the people around the world that a little bit about Australia's football scene. We're very confused about football over here because there's 4 different types of football. So, in fact, is it 4? Yes, I think it is. So there's what we call Aussie rules AFL, which is where it's a little bit like Gaelic football, which the English would understand, but the Americans wouldn't. The Indians, it's trying to explain this, to around the world people. And then we've got we call it soccer in Australia, but it's also known as football globally. Then you've got the NRL, National Rugby League, which is a version of rugby union or rugby unions, and that's played by only 2 or 3 states in Australia. Then you've got rugby union, which is sort of played in only a few states in Australia sort of as well. So, we're very confused about football in Australia, really.
It's very complex. It really is. I tell you one thing I will say. When I came over here, I watched AFL. I thought, what the hell is that? And now it's one of my favourite codes. Love it. Follow the
Yeah,
Swans. Go to what you can. Amazing code. And then when you layer over the top of it cricket, which is pretty much the only national sport, right, that everyone
yeah,
likes
yeah,
in Australia.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
With the glue that holds it all together, it's quite a complex sort of landscape. So when you've got sponsorships that you're managing and planning, different states, it's yeah, as I say, it was a baptism sort of by fire really, but it was a worthwhile one.
Yeah, and we also actually do play in very small doses gridiron, which is another term for American football. Um, and so we actually play that in Australia. Not a lot, but we actually do play it. The Americans do play rugby union. I don't know about rugby league. There's a bit of AFL, I think, in the USA as well. I don't think there's any Australian AFL type football in UK except for its own version, Gaelic football, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, so that's just a quick thumbnail sketch of actually football globally. If you're confused, don't worry, it's actually not that important, except if you're a football supporter. Yeah, we're a remote island. We do strange shit over here in Australia, but it's actually quite fun, including dogs that actually sort of get high on marijuana. So there you go. Now, you went out and did some whale watching as well, didn't you, actually?
We did,
So,
yeah. We just saw some humpback whales in Byron Bay and dolphins. It's yeah, it's everything that it's cracked up to be. It's a fantastic spot, and
yeah,
yeah, we love it up here.
yeah. Were any of the whales on marijuana? Did you notice that at all? Like dilated
Well,
pupils or anything?
there were none that bumped into the boat, thankfully, but yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, that's good because they're actually quite large, bit larger than a dachshund, really. So, look, a dachshund hitting you is one thing, but a humpback whale hitting you is another. In fact, there was a lady in Western Australia, which is the West Australian state of Australia, which is, by the way, 5 hours flight from Sydney or Byron Bay. She got crushed between two whales in while she was swimming there recently. So, yeah. So whales do look cuddly, but they're a bit dangerous if you actually swim with them. And maybe I'd rather get crushed by a dachshund or two. But all right. So on the more serious topic. So you've done the Coca-Cola gig. You've transformed the world with Coca-Cola advertising at the Sydney Olympics. So what's Justin do after that? Does he just go and have a good time in Sydney, or what goes on from here?
Look, at the time, I met met a girl. I met a partner at that time.
What? A girl? That never happens in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a bit of a cliche sort of story,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I was I knew I was staying here, and
Okay,
I
right.
moved the account, moved on to a different account. At said agency, and I actually worked on the launch of Xbox here at the time, and this is probably quite important in terms of again where I am, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. But I was sort of planning a big national launch of all the advertising for Xbox and all the different mediums that would appear on TV, etc., etc. And there's a lot of outdoor advertising that we recommended. And I'll never forget the client, who is ultimately was their money from Microsoft, said to me, "Look, Justin, I get the strategy, I understand, it all makes sense, but I know advertising, and I drive past panels, and they're not lit in the evening, and this one might be broken occasionally. I just want to be reassured that all the money we're spending, millions of dollars, that we're going to get what we pay for. How do we audit? How do we verify this stuff across a country the size of Australia?" And I literally said, "Well, we can't." And at that moment in time, it was like a ding ding, sort of a light bulb moment, and I sort of parked it over here.
Yep.
And and then within a year, I'd left and I'd set up OAS initially, in its initial embryonic sort of early form. really. And it was a leap of faith. I just got married, had a child, first mortgage, and no job really. So the sort of things that us crazies do, and it either goes one way or the other. Fortunately, it sort of projected me or put me on a sort of on a pathway to other things that I'd be involved in, and some good, some bad, in terms of successful, not so successful. But it was sort of almost that moment, and I set up OAS, and started that business on my own. And they were the early days. And in the early days, we would literally go out, check sites, outdoor sites, bus shelters, roadside billboards.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be a clipboard, paper, a camera, not digital cameras, they were too expensive at the time. And we'd go around, we'd record what happened, go home, type up a spreadsheet that we're going to give to our customers, the agencies, to say, here's your proof, here's each of the sites, the detail, here's a photo. I bought a scooter, sort of motorbike, so I was doing these inspections until 3 a.m, doing it myself. And I found people randomly in different states across the country by hook or by crook. And I'd be going to the agencies, dropping off literally huge photo albums of photos of each of the sites that we expected. I would have been in Big W developing all the photos. They were the early days, and that was the business. And it was a little bit premature. The market wasn't quite there. There was a lot of money floating around in the industry. And a lot of clients are like, you know what, why are we going to pay for that? We're happy with what we get. And those were those days. And so at that stage, I'd sort of been playing with or toying with an idea of setting up my own advertising agency, or marketing agency almost. And ended up setting up an agency and bringing on a business partner, which was focused on experiential marketing. So to explain what that is, it's like a form of event-based marketing. It's really like, for me, I'd worked in traditional advertising. I thought, well, there's got to be something a bit more engaging than people watching a TV commercial or an outdoor poster or whatever.
Yeah.
More of a one-on-one communication whereby sponsorships, marquees at music festivals, etc. And it was one of the earliest businesses that did that in the world. And we won awards all around the world. We were sort of referencing books from around the world. We really, I suppose, myself initially, and then my partner, really packaged it up in a very, very sort of proactive and attractive way. It was an opportunity that I saw, really. Just saw this opportunity. How, I don't know what prompted me to do it, but it was sort of done probably subconsciously, and sort of launched into that. And our first client was Vodafone, big corporate. Nokia, which was massive at the time. We worked across Southeast Asia with those guys. And sort of that was running until a few years ago, really. And it was very successful. An agency called One Partners over here. It was fantastic times, great. It is funny how, when I sort of look at a timeline of things that I've done, how one thing sort of leads to another, and things that you do learn. And I'll never forget with OP, we worked on Nokia when it was really good, but then also when the business almost died overnight. Nokia. iPhone launched, and I'll never forget sitting in meetings where we've got Nokia execs saying, but they've only got, they just an iPod. Now they've got a phone. They've only got one phone. We've got 100. We've got one for everybody. And they pretty much rested on their laurels, didn't really innovate, weren't really listening to consumers, what the market wanted, and definitely weren't ready for what Steve Jobs did, which was to launch apps. One phone.
Yep.
Most of it the same, really. Everyone's got different apps. And it hit them hard, and I think that stuck with me in terms of just trying to be aware of, and sort of looking introspectively at your own business, but also having that a little bit of that radar of what's going on around you. So that will.
Yeah. And this brings us, I suppose, to another topic, which is we're in the middle of another huge change to the world. We're seeing people that worked in high-rise buildings that commuted to the cities and to regional parts of the city, now working from home. So you've got we've got a digital world which has been accelerated by the pandemic. You're in, especially much in a retail, consumer-focused marketing outreach. Is that correct?
Well, look, the business at the moment. So what we do is we've created a pretty much a unique world-first platform whereby an agency can track all of their out of home by we send people there to each of the sites across the country, and I suppose our proposition is to ensure that the way consumers are supposed to be seeing that ad, whether it's a digital ad on a freeway or in a shopping centre or a poster on a bus shelter, they actually are, right? So it's not damaged in any way. And it can happen, it's a physical medium, we all sort of understand that, but it doesn't matter, right? A client, if they're paying for it, they need to be aware. Yep. And we do that through an app that we've developed, which again is you literally, so we've got people doing it up here all around the country. You just download and you can just grab jobs near you. And the model is very much an A to B. You can grab any job you want, any poster. Ideally, you're on your way to grab your lunch. You do it for your posters and $10, pay for your lunch. That's on the app side. It's almost like a marketplace and exchange that we've pulled together. And but also then we've got different sort of checkers who might drive around and drive 15k to do lots of sites. But that's really what I've done. I'm really proud of that, particularly during the likes of COVID, whereby we're actually providing an incremental income for people who probably need it at this point in time. That's good, and I genuinely I love that. That's fantastic. But so that's the sort of app side, but then there's the analytics side of how we report it through dashboards to our customers. But what I suppose has happened is digital out of home has really, well, particularly now, for example, during COVID, a lot of the stuff that you see is digital because you can change it in an instant. So if you go down, if you're in Victoria and you go into lockdown, stage 4 restrictions, well, an advertiser can change their messages straight away. If it's a paper poster, they can't. And it's really increased the nature of digital out-of-home advertising to become much more high percentage of spend. There's programmatic now. Programmatic ads are being sort of served through digital out-of-home advertising as well. So when we went into lockdown, actually, and again, it all sort of fits in nicely, the writing was on the wall for me. I could see the first industry that was going to get hit if people aren't out and about is, guess what, out of home advertising. And most companies, even the big outdoor companies, Deco here, O-Media, all of them, it's a terrible challenge for those guys because it's very hard to substantiate or get advertisers to spend if people aren't out on the streets as much as they were.
Yep.
So that's first, and I knew our sales, it was going to be tough for the immediate sort of period. So my view was, right, tools down, we're pivoting, we're moving away from business development sales, we're moving into product development. How do we come out of this stronger than we've gone into it? And that's the journey at the moment. And we're building a software piece around digital out of home, will give us, which is arguably a unique product now in the marketplace, combining that physical verification piece through the app, people visiting, but also allowing businesses to actually measure the plays and impressions that they're actually getting on all the digital screens as well. So it sort of came at a good time for us because we were playing a little bit of catch up. And I told you about the knocking. It sort of almost happened to myself, and sort of spotted it. But hopefully we're moving in the right direction to building that product out. And again, that's, as a CEO, not even so much as a founder, you have to make those calls, make them really quickly, and go with them. Yeah.
So we're in the middle of a huge switch into e-commerce more as opposed to shopping centres. So we've seen the rise of Amazon. So how and obviously you're moving into an area which was posters. Which used to run, the outdoor advertising scenes. Now we've got huge screens which sit on the edge of freeways, public highways and roads that can be changed in an instant. So how do you see this playing out over the next few years with retail and advertising? Because you're dealing very much in an out-of-home environment as opposed to an in-home or on-screen environment. So how do you see your industry and the challenges that happen that you're going to confront there? Where do you see that going?
You're talking about the broader out-of-home industries, not what we
Yeah.
do verification.
Yeah.
Look, the industry is, so what's happening is it's the digitisation of a lot of panels. This will speed it up, definitely.
Yep.
And the programmatically serving digital ads. This is again fantastic, right? So it's moving it. So there'll be a lot more programmatic advertising with digital, a lot more connectivity with other digital channels like mobile, e-commerce, right? Look, out of home is essentially, it's a part of that path to purchase. You've got the big stuff that is very much brand awareness driven. You've got tactical stuff in shopping centres. It's actually a very broad, very flexible medium. But the one thing I will say, there aren't really any true broadcast mediums outside of outdoor advertising now. You know, digital is very targeted. So to get that sense of bigness and brand, which I think a lot of advertising have neglected over the last decade, really.
Yep. Yep.
I think it's a real opportunity for out of home. That's my view. That's just how I tend to approach things. You know, turn things into a positive. But I think it's a huge opportunity for out of home. But at the moment, it's very challenging. Very challenging time.
So what you mean by big advertising, broadcast media? You're talking TV, you're talking outdoor screens. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm talking primarily about outdoor, because even TV, you know, you basically got your event-based TV, which might be a final of MasterChef or Sydney Swans play, etc., where a lot of people are, you know, they're viewing it at a single time. It feels big, etc. A lot of connected TV and streaming and whatever, there's time shift, people watch it when they want. The impact of large format out of home is significant. And again, I think, as I say, outdoor advertising per se can be used in very different ways. It can be used, you know, very tactically, very action orientated messages, purely because of locality. But in terms of e-commerce, I'm not completely convinced yet. E-commerce will increase, but for the foreseeable future, people are going shopping. It's an experience as well, and it's not dead. It's not dying. There's a certain role. So even in terms of actually, you can apply even sort of shopper marketing as well. As well, in store, etc. But with e-commerce, all the channels are there, right? Digital is targeted digital, Facebook even, and, you know, Google and the display stuff. I think that's going to evolve. It's becoming already it's becoming an even larger piece of the overall marketing mix.
Yeah.
But I'm not a huge believer that it builds brands. I suppose that's what I'm saying. And I think advertisers have to be very wary of that. You can't just differentiate yourself on a product. There's got to be some sort of brand attribution and brand affinity. And I think the big e-commerce businesses do both quite well.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to actually retrack a little bit to what you mentioned, which was experiential marketing. And we're talking where you've got online, you've got virtual, and then you've got shopping experiences. Then you've got actually walk into a store, walk into a shopping centre, high street, for example. We've seen a lot of people go back to buying from, in England they call it the high street, where you're actually walking down the road. So this is not talking so much about what you do from an outside advertising point of view or out of home, but more experiential marketing, which is what you were doing, which is where you saw the challenges for actually verifying that the signs were working outside. So experiential marketing, advertising, or experiential shopping, where you go into a shopping centre, you can try the clothes on. Where do you see the future of experiential, I suppose, retail? That's maybe the thing that I find quite interesting. Where's this going, you think?
Look, I think I think we're going to see a shift, right? It's a generational thing. Having worked in marketing, advertising for quite a period of time, you see trends. You definitely do. And one minute it's all digital, no TV, the next minute it's TV and no digital. That just happens.
Yep.
I think we're probably moving to a point whereby a younger generation are much more comfortable buying stuff online. And if it doesn't fit, they wrap it back up, send it back again, right?
Yeah.
A lot of generations still aren't, and a lot of the money is with those generations that aren't. So the high street retail is not dead in any shape or form.
No.
Now, whether it moves, and there was a lot of debate, years ago about basically sort of physical bricks and mortar retailers really becoming showrooms. You can go in, you can try the product on, then you go online, you can purchase, etc. And there's a degree of that now. I genuinely, I don't think there is one single answer. And I think people think, right, it's going to be one or the other. It won't be. It'll be both. And
it's multi-channel, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And people buy. Again, it's down to individuals as well. And what you can see, you look at where the sort of e-commerce platforms have worked really, really hard over the years. Look at Amazon. It's all about logistics. It's about ease of purchase. It's not marketing. It's not even necessarily the products.
It's an experience. It's an experience, though.
It's a broader brand. So we experiential marketing, and then with brands we call it brand experience. What is the experience with your brand? And if you're selling your brand on Amazon, the way Amazon deliver, supply, their UX, everything is part of your brand experience. And it's all starting to come together now.
I totally agree. So I buy things that I know I don't have to try on. Like, I'd struggle buying clothes online. I really do. And it was like on the weekend I saw this jacket online and I looked at it. Great. It was what I'd call COVID pricing. It looked great on the model, because there's all these wonderful models, right? A little bit younger than me, only a little bit younger, like in their early mid-20s, early 30s, right? Just a bit younger. And it looked great. I went into the store because the store was actually quite close. I went and tried it on, and the colour just didn't sit right. Yet on the model, it looked fabulous. I didn't buy that jacket because, and I would hate the frustration of actually getting it delivered and going, do I really have to send this back? Do I need to drop it off? Do I need to ring them up? It's like, just way too complicated.
That's how they get you. That's how they get you.
I know. Well, I walked out of that shop, didn't buy it, walked to one of their competitors. They had a very similar jacket, and guess what? The collar sat really nicely, and I went, done. And guess what? It was double the price. But I know that if I bought that other jacket for pricing purposes, it would have sat in my wardrobe and hardly ever be worn. So that for me was an experience that was really just justified my retail, the way I buy retail, right? The way I buy clothes. And yet the younger generation will just go, send it back, don't worry about it, get on the app and do it. And so it's...
My daughter's 18, my other daughter's 16. My son 14, but mine 19, 16. They buy their horse riding gear, everything, and there's just packages everywhere, literally. And then when they're done with them, they sell them online on, I can't remember what the website is, but something. They're plugging it all. They've got a mannequin, or they try it on. It's very, very different, and it will change. But who's to say that fundamentally? And again, social media impacts this. Popular culture, all of these things. They go retro, and they're like, actually, we really like going in stores and trying it on rather than trying it on at home. And
Yeah.
who's the fan? No, look at you look at a number of years, and I don't think anyone knows that answer. You'll hear the e-commerce, the platforms and the Amazons and eBays of this world talk it up. Of course they do, but I think when you sort of layer a little bit of common sense, like everything else, it's horses for courses, and a little bit of everything. I think.
Yeah.
Not a bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So I totally agree with you. It's just trying to giving you the different platforms, the different ways that people can buy that's easy for everyone, depending on their preference. And that's why it's important.
Omnichannel, ultimately.
Yeah. You've got to be omni-channel, which is a lovely word I've used for about a decade. So for those who don't know what omni-channel means, it means multi-channel, which means many ways to buy, many ways to distribute, many ways to market. So, yeah. So maybe just wrap it up a little, what your thoughts are on where we're going with advertising and marketing and maybe business in this COVID-19 world. Where do you think it's all going, and what would be some of your top tips to survive as a business in this time?
Look, if we're talking about COVID specifically, this time, my view was think about pivoting. Look at your business, look at worst case scenario and plan for it. Right, that's it. And be smart to plan, but be really quick to act. I looked, got a bit of advice, sort of bounced off my ideas and thought, right, now's the time to pivot. We've got an opportunity here to catch up and create a product which is really, really unique and building on our existing product. Costs, unfortunately, where you can automate. And it's worth spending a little bit of money around automating your business and looking at your operations. Retain positivity through the business. Be real, talk to your teams, and talk about the realities and the harsh realities and the problems that you're facing. Show a degree of flexibility with your team, with your employees, with your customers, even with your suppliers. Because that sort of good karma does come back, definitely. And look at the embrace. Now's the time to experiment. Now it's fantastic, right? Now's the time to see who actually do you really trust in your team to not be in the office. Not looking at them. Are they going to deliver or not? Are they?
Yeah.
This one doesn't. Don't penalise everybody. You know what? That's the problem over here. I think I know our team, our CTO, everyone are fantastic, and we're getting better results than we ever have done. And we're all saving ourselves an hour, 2 hour commute in and out of the office. There's the social side of things which can be challenging, and that lack of interaction.
Yeah.
Pop on a video call. It's not that hard, and we can still go and have a beer, or at the moment in Sydney anyway. I'm not talking about Victoria here, obviously. Those guys have got their own challenges, unfortunately, and I think we're all sort of thinking what's happening down there.
Yeah.
But experiment, embrace it. It's neat in so many years where we do make a bit of a mistake. No one can say, "Oh, how the hell did you do that?" Not a huge excuse. It's called COVID-19. Experience and experiment. That's my view.
Yeah, that's great advice, and I totally agree. I think the opportunity for us is to reinvent ourselves, to use it as a point to push us into the future. I certainly am seeing businesses reinvent much more rapidly. I think what was happening has been, I think we've accelerated the evolution of even nations and business by maybe a decade or even faster than that, because a lot of this digital reinvention was already there. It just, and for example, people going, well, I can't let people not work from home because I can't see what they're doing, as opposed to, well, I actually got to trust them. And there's different ways to actually manage without actually having to be, sitting over their shoulder, treating them like children. So I think we're in the middle of an incredibly fast revolution of business and humanity, I think, driven by what's occurred. And as you said, I think we've got to remain positive. I think that's really important in moving forward, is that you can curl up in a corner and just, basically cry and kick and scream. But the reality is that it's here. We've got to make the opportunity out of this. And one of the phrases I heard, especially in political circles, was "Don't waste a good crisis." So, and obviously you're not. So,
I think, look, I'll just add to that. I think also just a little bit of empathy with everyone, again, with customers, and particularly your employees. I don't think anyone knows at all this sort of situation can take on and anyone, however sort of strong they appear on the outside. Even with competitive businesses, it's tough times, and as I say, a little bit of empathy for everyone during this period goes a very, very long way. Business is important; it's not the most important.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that, because we're humans doing business, not business doing humans. I think that, and we need to design, work and business and life that works for us as individuals, as humans, and like what you've been talking about, which is really making sure you're communicating, make sure you have empathy, that you're actually listening, because you're right. On the outside, everyone smiles. At night, sometimes they go to bed crying. So, and that's it's tough. We're in a very tough time.
But at the same time, we all want to win. So let's all play nicely.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah. Well, I totally, yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing too is people actually walking down the streets now actually say hi and make eye contact a lot more, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
yeah, and we're in this together, and if we need to work on this together to make sure that we get through it in the best possible shape. And yeah, it's a tough time, but I launched this podcast in March this year, and I'm having the most fabulous conversations with people like yourself, and dashhounds that are actually a little bit struggling with marijuana addiction. And you know what? You just can't help, dashhounds in this situation unless they need a bit of outside help. So you've got to take them to the vet, the counsellor, who goes, "Yep." I don't know who does that, but I'm sure he's very, very good. But look, great to chat, Justin. It's been fabulous. I am just about to leap on a road trip in the next couple of weeks to come up to Byron. You might be there, you might not. You might be doing whale watching, I don't know, or rushing off to the vet again for another dashhound debut. So we'll see. But great to chat, mate, and really appreciate it. And enjoy Byron.